Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a how I edit my Instagram pictures. I haven't done this video in a really long time, so I definitely wanted to do an updated version. And also, if you didn't notice, I dyed my hair dark brown again. This is actually the darkest it's ever been. It was even darker a few days ago, but I've been washing it, trying to get it to tone down a little bit. But I'm pretty happy with it. I wasn't expecting it to be this dark, but I think it's definitely interesting. Like, I haven't done something like this in a while, and I was definitely being very impulsive. And also, I just wanted to say that I'm going to be doing a back to school lookbook hopefully next week or the week after. I don't start school until September 19th, so it's kind of hard for me to face the fact that school is actually starting again, and I want to make some back to school videos. So let me know in the comments below what type of back to school videos you'd like to see, and also subscribe to be able to see those if you're a new viewer. And then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it, and let's just get right into it. So here are the 6 pictures I decided to go with. I didn't really pick these based on anything other than that they were in my camera roll unedited. Usually when I take a picture, I'll put it into ViscoCam, and then once I save it, I'll delete the original. And I just recently went through and deleted every picture on the app just because it was taking up so much storage on my phone, since it does take up that kind of storage. And I decided to pick through quite a few variety of types of lighting situations to show what I would do for each thing. So let's just get right into it. Starting with this picture, usually I go with, for something that's kind of more sunny, I'll go through a more light or color, I guess, if that makes sense. Like C1 is kind of more like a kind of orangey-ish color, and it kind of reminds me of summer, so I'll do that. Sometimes I'll bump up the contrast 1 or 2, but since this is kind of more light, it's better just to keep it at a neutral. And I can even try to play with the exposure, bump it down a bit. I usually just test on 1 or 2, depending on how washed out the picture kind of is. And then sometimes I might play with the highlight, just because it kind of sometimes can be a lot, and so it's good to just kind of have a more neutral, I guess you can say, keep the brights kind of down. And I don't do much else unless I want to bump up the contrast, like I said, after I play with the other settings. But I kind of like it how it is now. I like the crop of it right now because it kind of has that weird kind of border angle, if that makes sense. So I think I'm just going to leave that one. I'll only ever sometimes play with the skin tone color, since in this case it does have that kind of orangish color, because orange and reds you can use the skin tone on, and I kind of like it pinker, so I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll bump it down a little bit. Next, for a picture like this, I usually will do something with HB2, because I like how that kind of looks with wood and kind of industrial stuff, if that makes sense. Sorry, I keep moving the phone all over the place. And then again, I'll bump up the contrast maybe 1 or 2, try the exposure. I think I might keep it down. Sometimes the only thing I don't like about ViscoCam is that you can't really play with the brightness too much, because sometimes it's just a huge difference like that. If there was an in-between, that'd be really nice. And then also sometimes it's good to take note of that really washed out area. So you can try the highlight. Sometimes it helps a little bit. And then sometimes, if some people can't stand that, literally just taking the crop and doing something else with it. But I don't mind it that much because it's not too bad, so I think I'm just going to leave it like that. I might play with the temperature, since it is kind of orange in there, just kind of bring it back down, and then you can play with the tint, but I think I'm just going to leave it because I like the balance it has right now. This was an underwater shot with the GoPro. Usually for certain pictures I will just kind of play around, see which one I like. I've actually really started liking this TK1, or just TK, I mean. It's a new one that came out, but since it has that bright highlight area, I'll probably stick with the C1, and then I can go into the settings and play with color other ways. So a good way to play with color is with temperature, obviously. And since it is kind of a water shot, I'm going to make it a little more cool tones. A good combination is I really like to turn the tint down along with the color, because it gives an orangish green, and those work really well together. And then I will play with the contrast, maybe bump it up 1. The thing about contrast is it makes blacks darker and it makes whites lighter. So that's like when you see, like if you do turn it up, you will be gambling with that white and it'll be making everything else darker. And then again with this bright area, maybe see the highlight. Not too drastic like that, but if you bring it up a little bit, it will kind of make it more fluid, if that makes sense, like kind of makes it more balanced. And then sometimes maybe just playing around with the crop. I generally like the natural crop of it, but sometimes I'll kick out certain areas to get into what's really important, just because it has like really cool details over here, and this is kind of washing it out a little bit since the sun was coming through the top. I use this picture because it has this red color, and I don't do a lot with colors, so it's good to like, I wanted to have a variety to like of pictures to play with to show how I would edit different things. I was kind of conflicted with this one. I was unsure of what filter to use, but I think I might be a little different and use that TK just because I kind of like the way it makes the hair look, even though the face looks a little purple. And then again, just playing with that contrast. I feel like that's already it's sharp enough, so I don't want to make it look overdone. And then again, playing with tints. That's what I mean, like with the face especially, you kind of just want to play with, you don't want to overdo it, but also it is kind of distracting how bright it is, so maybe like 1 or 2, and then it kind of just brings it back in a little bit. This one is a really dark one, so that's one reason I wanted to pick it when showing. It's kind of hard to see if that's any better. It is kind of hard to see, so sorry about that. I will be showing these all on the screen anyways, but I really like the color. I think color looks really cool with this one. So I would have to take a lot of time to think about it, but I also really think that this black and white looks really cool, especially with the shadows. And I do like this negative space to the right, but I'm just gonna bring it in. And then maybe bump up the contrast, because that's always a good thing to do with black and white, since you don't really have to worry about colors. It's all about sharpness of shadows and things like that, and like shape. So it's good to bump up the contrast, but still not overdo it. And then you can kind of play with the exposure, depending on the mood of the photo. I'm just gonna leave it how it is. And since it is in black and white, I won't do much else to it. This is a picture I took a really long time ago, and I'm pretty sure I used the HB2 filter on it just because I really like that cool tones of the building. And then I'll bring it in, and since this one has really nice lighting on it, you won't really notice, the contrast will be visible, but it'll definitely spike up the picture a lot more and make it look a lot better. And then you can kind of play with the exposure, but I don't want to go too heavy into editing, so I will just see how I like it. And I like this cool tone, so I might drop it 1 and then play with the tint, see how I like it. It's just really cool to me to see how quickly a picture can change with just like a filter and some contrast. And then some adjusting to the lighting. I decided to use this picture not only because it's 21 Pilots, but because of the interesting lighting situation of how the light was hitting the camera. And with just a few like subtle edits, you can change the picture a lot, like bumping up this contrast quite a bit since it was really washed out. You can go overboard with contrast really easily, but since it had, like if you look at the original, since it was so like washed out by the lighting, you can gamble with that kind of more, you can turn up the contrast more. And then playing with certain cropping, maybe take out that a little bit. And then once you bring it in more, you can begin to play again with how it looks. Maybe bump that down 1, and then I can turn down the contrast a little bit. Check the highlights, maybe have it at a 2. And already you can see how much the picture has changed. And then again, playing with that temperature, seeing, I kind of like this one to be a little brighter since it already has a lot of cool tones. And then again, playing with this, I'm gonna keep it neutral though. And then this next one is another building picture, but it just has a lot of different colors, so it's interesting to be able to play with those in different ways. I really think I like this HB2 though, because it kind of cools it down, and I'm going to turn it down quite a bit just because of how much it takes away from the shadows, which is another thing you can play with, is if you end up turning up the shadows, it's a really good idea to make sure you also bump up the contrast because the shadows makes it lose a lot of other places. So it's kind of just finding like a good equilibrium, playing with the exposure, but since it is kind of backlit, you don't really want to mess up the lighting situation, so I would just leave it. And since it has these kind of tones like the orangish, you can play with the skin tone and see how you like it. I kind of like it neutral. All the editing I do is always based up just on the picture. That's why I wanted to include so many different types, because I wanted to show you how I would edit different pictures based on different lighting situations. This one, I think I might go with C1. I think earlier when I posted it, I think I used HB2, but right now I'm gonna try C1, and I'm gonna bump up the contrast 1 because it's already pretty contrasty just because of the lighting change, like how it's really light and really dark. Maybe play with not the highlights, that's not what I meant. The shadows, just see if you do turn up the shadows, like I said, make sure you balance it out with the contrast, and so you can already see how like changed it has become. Then like always, check the temperature, that kind of, if we want to make it more like neutral/white, then you just change these. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said in the beginning, I'm going to be posting some back to school videos, so definitely subscribe to see those. And again, let me know what videos in particular for back to school you like to see, or just videos in general. I've been making a big list of videos I would like to do because I'd like to post better content on my channel, if that makes any sense. This one was a kind of slackish video just because I am lazy. So definitely know what you'd like me to be posting, and I'll see you guys next week with another video. Bye!
Got my fire on my aux cord. What's your preference? Do you like rap or rock more? Whatever that you like, I got it all for you. So what it do? I got a lot more time.